Welcome to the first ever State of the Nation address. We're here live, and we're glad you're here. I am Slaughter. I'm the current Nantan CEO of the F3 Nation, and we're glad you're joining us tonight. A Nantan is a term we use in F3 to designate a spiritual and cultural leader. And tonight my job's easy. I'm here to tell you a little bit about why we're here, why the nation's here, to tell you a little bit about the organization that most of you belong to. We want to try to explain specifically what it exactly we're trying to accomplish and how you can help with that mission. To do that, tonight you will be visited by 3 ghosts. I'm just kidding. These aren't ghosts. These are my friends. I've got 3 guys with me. I've got Dredd, who is the original co-founder of F3. He was the Nantan before me. We call him Emeritus. He's going to tell you a little bit about where we came from. I got Dark Helmet, who is the president of F3 Nation. He's going to tell you a little bit about where we are. And then I got Carmen Sandiego beaming in from Naperville. He is the incoming chairman of the board, and he's going to tell you a little bit about where we're headed. After that, I'll wrap it up, and you'll be out of here in 30, 40 minutes. Dredd, lay it on us, brother.
Thank you, brother. So, as Slaughter said, I'm the original Nantan of F3 Nation. We didn't call it that back, 13 years ago, believe it or not, from about right now. 13 years ago is when OBT and I were making our plans to launch what would eventually become F3. At that point in time, it had no name. We were just part of another workout group in Charlotte that had about 30 guys in it, and it had gotten to the point where it was too big for there really to capture the fellowship, but was a big part of it. A lot of the bones of what is now F3 were present at that predecessor workout, and OBT and I joined forces to bring what was working for 30 men to as many men as we possibly could. So we sent out about 95 emails to guys that we knew that we thought might be interested and said, look, January 1st, 2011, we're going to start this workout thing. Come out to this middle school in Charlotte at 7 a.m. and we're going to do this workout thing. Take about an hour. We didn't give a lot of details about it. Frankly, we thought we'd get maybe 5, 7, maybe 10 guys out at that first workout. And if we kept at it over the course of the next year, maybe we could build that thing up to about 20 guys. So that first morning we came out, it was foggy, not too nice a day in Charlotte, New Year's Day, and there were 30 men there. We were pretty astounded by that. That was the first day of this thing we now call F3. We never had less than 30 men. The very next week we had 33 men, and it just kept building from there. A lot of those original 30 guys are still with us, still working out with us, and a lot of men started to come very quickly to what we really didn't have a name for. About 6 months into it, one of the guys that were working out with us said, you know what this really is? It's like 3 Fs. We've got the fitness thing going, we've got the fellowship thing going, we've got the faith thing going. It's 3 Fs. And I think OBT said F3, that's what we'll call it. That was 6 months into the thing. We didn't have any structure. You know, we had the workout. We didn't even know about the COT or any of the other things that a lot of men over the last 13 years have come to become familiar with through F3. And we made each of those things up as time went by over that first year or so to solve a problem. For instance, we had no real way to adjourn the workout. We just kind of would drift away. I mean, if you look at the picture of the first workout, which we have, we're all just kind of standing in a bunch, and I think I'm running my big mouth. But we weren't in a circle, and we didn't have any structure to it. Original guys posed it as an idea. Why don't we join a circle and say our names? And Circle of Trust was born. So each aspect of what is now F3 evolved in that way. Somebody, usually somebody other than OBT or me, would come up with a great idea. We would originally mock it, because that's who we are, and then adopt it, because it often solved the problem. At the end of that first year, we had divided up into 3 groups because we had so many men. And we had started a rudimentary leadership course because with all those men, somebody else needed to lead them, and OBT and I couldn't lead 3 different workouts, so we started training other men and doing what we had learned to do. That lasted into kind of the next year when we started getting invitations to come to other places. You know, guys who were doing F3 in Charlotte would say, you know, I've got this brother-in-law in Atlanta, and he's lonely and fat and needs friends and all that stuff. And we said, can you guys go down there? So we did. Same thing happened in Raleigh and Greenville, South Carolina, I think was the first one. OBT and I would personally do that. And that started to catch on, and we quickly realized we didn't have enough bandwidth to keep going. So that's when OBT and I sat down and wrote out this leadership course that we had, and that became Free to Lead. And we self-published that. I think between the two of us, we invested about $5,000 to do it and started sending that book out. And people started to read it, and the thing started to grow and grow and grow. We started making plans, like we're going to plan to work out in every state or every city that has an NFL team. We had that plan early on. That worked for a while, and then we disbanded that. We started forming structures, like we didn't call it the SLT, we hadn't got to that point yet. We just kind of put together guys who would come in for a while and do something, give their time and their talents and their treasure to this thing that was starting to grow and have all this impact. About halfway through, we got on the NBC Today show, and I don't even remember how that happened. But guys from NBC came and put us on TV, and boy, that exploded us by a quantum of 2 or 3. Then we were on the Art of Manliness. We had a podcast, the Art of Manliness podcast. I think it's one of the most listened to podcasts, and it's probably one of the reasons a lot of guys give when they show up to F3, that they heard about it on the podcast. We started to spread out state by state. We would look at the map and go, man, we're in 20 states. Man, we're in 25 states. Just unbelievable. Other guys joined us along the way, like Slaughter and Dark Helmet, and started becoming involved. And they said, I really like what we're doing. You know, how can I help? And we immediately give them a job, sucking their time and talent and treasure out of them. And all these men that came in would move the organization forward in other places. We'd pick them up, and they would do the work. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful thing to watch this thing grow. About the 10-year time was when I turned it over to Slaughter, turned the flag over to him, let him take us to the next stage, which he's done a great job on. And I recognize the organization as the emeritus because it has all the great and wonderful aspects of the original organization, and yet the many things that Dark Helmet and Slaughter have done to move the organization along in the last 3 years are things I never personally would have thought of, and I know OBT never personally would have thought of. The most common question that I get asked anywhere I go is, wow, in your wildest dreams? And I say, did I think it would be where it is? Yeah. How'd you know I was going to ask that? Because everybody always asks me that. And I say, yep, this is exactly how we planned it, which is a lie. It is not. We had no plan whatsoever other than to headlock the very next guy we encountered, other than to see a workout planted in the very next place that needed one, other than to continue to give away this thing that has been so impactful in our lives. Because I think if OBT was here, he'd tell you what I'm going to tell you now, which is it has changed my life. It has given my life meaning. And the most thankful people for that are not actually me, but my wife and my children are the most thankful people for that. So here we sit, getting ready to hit our 13th year. And the expansion and the place that we've ended up is incredible to me. And we're going to have Dark Helmet describe that place now.
Thanks, Dred. And what's shaking, nation? I appreciate very much Dred's words, because I think I came along, it was the fall of 2014, somewhere in that, like actually it was going in the winter of 2014. And just like he described, I was fat and lonely. I didn't even realize it. Well, I kind of knew I was fat. I guess that part was probably a little obvious, but I didn't know that I needed it. And it's funny because as I go around the nation, listen to guys talk, that's what they say a lot of. So the question that we have now is, okay, so that's where we began and that's where we came from, and hopefully you saw that picture of that first workout at Alexander Graham Middle School, which is still a site where people meet on Saturdays. And where have we gotten to now? So I want to introduce you to Swingin' Richard, because you've seen it on a lot of the posts about the state of the nation. What does that mean? And it originates, well, who knows where it originates, or like originally, but for us, it originates from a speech that Dred gave kind of impromptu at the end of a Mission I'm Possible workout, which is a workout that happens on Saturdays at a rehab center here in Charlotte. And what came out of that, and the realization that came out of that, again, this is 13 years down the road, is that we're still solving the same problem we've always been solving. And the problem that we have is that men in our world are devoid of someone to show them how to lead and to unlock them so that they can become the men that they're supposed to be. That's I think at its core what we're trying to solve. And so now you've got, we had 30 guys show up at that first workout. We're now in more states than there were men at the first workout. Heck, we're almost in more countries now. 13 different countries, 48 states. No, I'm sorry, 48 states. 4,305 weekly workouts across 358 regions in all of those countries. Represents, well, if you do slaughter math, it's maybe a little generous, but somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 70, 80,000 men that have been to an F3 workout. And what happened a few years ago, just like Dred was talking about, is we had to take those things that were kind of, a little loosey-goosey, and it was kind of, hey, this guy will jump in here, and hey, that guy will jump in there. And we realized that the critical mass of the organization had grown to a point where it wasn't tenable to have it be just like, whoever raises their hand and figure it out. We need to have some sort of more formal structure to it. There needed to be some framework that we could build that would then support the weight of the men that were coming. And the men kept coming, and the men keep coming. And the reason they keep coming is the same reason I came, the same reason Slaughter has come, the same reason that Sex, Lies, and Videotape, who's running the behind the scenes here, came. It's for that same reason. And that reason is because whether we realize it or not, there's a hole in our hearts. And that hole has to be filled by purpose. It's got to be filled with a mission. And F3 has given that framework. It's unintentional at first, and then Slaughter came, and he has helped us, because he's very, very organizationally talented, to build this into a structure where we can now support you as you go out and try and learn how to be better husbands, better fathers, better members of your community. And so the question now, as we sit here is, what's next, and where are we headed? And Carmen Sandiego is going to talk about that in just a second, but I got to tell you, even with all of the structure that we have, and even with all of the professionalism that we've tried to bring to this thing, I feel like as we've talked as a leadership group, we've kind of hit a plateau again. And we've kind of maxed out our ability to make it on the backs of volunteers alone. And so we hired a guy, right, to run the foundation. You guys know him, Scratch and Win, John Horton, 42. I don't know how old he is, something like that. He's watching from the West Coast right now with the Puget Sound and the Gold Rush guys. Shout out to Gold Rush. But we hired that guy to help run the foundation. He's done an incredible job of rallying resources. Whether we like it or whether we don't like it, it takes resources to do what we're doing. He's done an incredible job. And so now we're looking and saying, well, what's the next step? And like I said, Carmen Sandiego is going to talk about that a little bit more, but we have visions of things that we must do in order to support this, because we can't stop where we are. Acceleration is something that has been built into the DNA from the very beginning of F3. Dred and OBT put it in there, again, intentionally or unintentionally, that's where it is. Constant forward progress, constant improvement. And so now I'm going to toss it over to Carmen Sandiego and let him talk about where we're headed. But I can tell you this before I do that. The resources we have gotten us here. And what he's gonna ask you to do, I want you to really listen very carefully. What he's gonna ask you to do and what Slaughter's gonna ask you to do at the end here as we wrap up, I just want you to listen so carefully, because we can't get there without your help. And they're gonna ask you for some very specific kind of help, okay? So, Carm?
Thank you, Nation. It's a pleasure to be able to address the nation, to be able to come in as the new chairman of the board. And for many of you all, many of the PACs here, a lot of us who are listening right now may not even know that we had a larger board that helped to facilitate and help to kind of govern F3. And I think that's really indicative to what's really important to us as an organization, is to remain and make sure that we're always proximate and that we're always giving away what we have to the person that's next to us. And as we start to think about that and consider that as we move forward, I'm going to share a little bit into how I was introduced into F3. Coming from, or I'm a son of F3 Naperville. I was by Blues Clues, who I met through a previous leader that I had working with Pearson. And, you know, we had connected through a workshop that I had done on courageous vulnerability. And we were connected through our leader who said, hey, you all live in the same area. You're both former athletes in college. I think it'd be a good idea if you all connected. And so, yeah, we had a lot of things in common. But what he didn't know at the time was that I had moved back to the Chicagoland area to be the caregiver, full-time caregiver for my mother, who was quickly losing her health. And when he EH'd me, really just around the workout, it was the beginning of, as many of you all may know, COVID. I mean, I came in, I'm actually celebrating my 4-year anniversary this Saturday. And it was around a crescendoing time in which there was a lot of turmoil in my life personally, but for the rest of the world. And so I share that story because, you know, one of the things that we're going to be thinking about as we expand and we continue to double and triple down on the things that are important to us as a nation is, as we're giving this away, how do we start to accelerate that? And then how do we ensure that we are leaving F3 as a possibility at the footsteps of men around our planet? We want to make F3 available to every man that exists on planet Earth. And we are well on our way in doing that. I've had the privilege of being able to travel over to Kenya, shout out to our PACs over in Nairobi, and work out with brothers there at AOs. And from what I've heard, they're having a convergence between Kenya and Uganda. So in tying all these things together, really, as we start to consider just my story of entering into F3 Nation, by Blues Clues, how proximate that was for me, but in his EHing, just the crescendo of help and support that I've been able to receive from F3 Naperville. And if you notice, a lot of that story and a lot of the things that have really set well with me were outside of or in addition to the workouts that we have. So when we start to think about the future of F3 and as we start to expand globally, there are 5 areas that are top of mind for me and for the rest of the board and the rest of the SLT. The first is make sure, as I started off with, is that we double and triple down on what's gotten us here. We have very strong core areas of operation and ways in which we move forward. And I think we need to make sure that we always keep that at the root of how we grow. The second is going to be to listen. It's really important to listen, not only with our ears and get feedback, but also with our eyes, looking at where we're growing, where we're not growing, and where we need to grow, right? Particularly as we think about making F3 available and open to all men. And then 3 more tactical areas are, as we think about ourselves as an organization, we are a leadership development organization fundamentally. So as we're starting to expand, I think it's going to be really important for us to start to build the support mechanisms to further some of our initiatives around leadership development. So that's further investment in our NANTANs. We're also thinking about and looking at our sector conferences, or maybe even establishing some of those, as well as really a strategy around for how do we start to organically build content creation around leadership development. The second is our digital footprint and what that looks like, right? Many of the AOs and regions use Slack. Are we looking at other tools that could be a lot more applicable to how we're growing that can be used in other places? Are there other applications that we need to look at, as well as considering something like Salesforce or a CRM, right? So those are just some top of mind areas that we're thinking about as we expand and going forward. And third, which is really likely the most important in what we do so well, which is, who we attract to the organization. We're being proximate, and we will continue to be proximate as we start to expand globally, and just really thinking about and considering how we are doing that and pushing ourselves to move beyond maybe even some of the AOs that we're in and some of our shield locks to expand that as we make sure that we are opening up the aperture to all men for F3. So those are the 5 areas that are really kind of top of mind. But, I really just want to just reiterate for me how humble I am and how grateful I am, not for the position, but just for F3 in general. I mean, taking it back to Blues Clues and my EH, with everything that's happened personally and professionally over the last 3.5 years, I don't think I would have been able to make it without F3. And it means that much to me and that much to all of us that I think it's going to be that much more important for us to think about how we are accelerating toward advantage, as well as accelerating how we are sharing and becoming more proximate and giving away this gift that we all have around F3. So that's a little bit of insight into kind of what we're thinking, and always open, like we said, to listen and to hear the feedback as to how we need to be moving some of these things forward. So with that, I would like to pass it back to my rooming buddy, Slaughter.
Thanks, Carmen Sandiego. Appreciate it. When I was in high school, I wrestled. I think I wrestled most years that I was there. When I was a freshman, I had to wrestle a guy who was a senior from another school. He was a pretty good wrestler, as I remember it. I was brand new. I wrestled up either 1 or 2 weight classes. And I entered that match scared as heck. And we got started, and things were going okay. And pretty soon I found myself back down on the mat, and I gave up. I let myself get pinned. Match was over. My freshman year. So I continued to wrestle, and despite what you might see here, I was not much of a wrestler. I wasn't very good. I lost plenty of matches in high school. I don't remember a single thing about any one of those matches except for the one where I rolled over and let myself get pinned. That's something I think about most weeks that go by. And it wasn't that I lost. You win some, you lose some. It's that I didn't have the confidence and the courage to try my best, and I knew it. I rolled over and I let myself get pinned. At F3, we have created this organization so that that doesn't happen. We've been working together to create a structure and the support needed so that men can go out there and give their very best, so that they can have the confidence, the courage, and the support to go out there and give it their best day in and day out. Our charge for you is to give it everything that you have. Is for you to go out day in and day out and to give absolutely everything that you can to your family, to your community, and to F3. That's why we exist. So you've heard a lot about where we came from. You heard a lot from Helmut about where we're at right now. Carmen Sandiego gave you a little bit of a glimpse to where we're going. We're looking to do an awful lot. We're looking to build something to support each other, right? We want to have the structure. We want to have the leadership development tools. We are building something so that we can handle the onslaught that's coming our way. We've gotten from where we were to where we are, and you can believe me where we're going, and we need a lot. But none of that matters if every man doesn't give it their absolute all. Now, that might mean showing up at the workout so that you're there for the next man, so that you can stand in that circle of trust and look across and let your brother know that you're there. That might mean a leadership position at your AO or in your region or on a national level. You heard a little bit about the structure. You heard about employee number 1. Well, I tell you something, in 2024, we're gonna hire employee number 2. Helmut told you that we can no longer carry this on the backs of volunteers. We have to get professional with this thing. In order to organize all of this, I mean, we've got attorneys, we've got accountants, we've got trademark attorneys, we've got intellectual property that we are trying to protect. That all costs money. We need somebody to help manage that, and we're going to hire an operations manager this year. So if you can support that, we need your help there too. All we ask is that you go out and you give absolutely everything that you have. We are charging you to go out and build stronger men, loving families, fair and effective governments, and supportive communities. Without the help of each and every one of you working hand in hand with this structure that we're putting together, we're not going to get anywhere. But together, if we get every single swinging Richard in the fight, if we take this to the doorstep of every man on the planet, we can work together so that we can change this world. We can stop this planet from further descending into the chaos and hatred that we're witnessing now. F3 has the ability to do that. This is going to be a household name pretty soon. It's getting there already. But it's only going to happen if you wear it proudly where you're at. Selflessly giving day in and day out. There are too many men out there letting themselves get pinned every day, just like I did my freshman year in high school. We've got to stop that. We've got to support these men so that they can go back and they can give it back. Because if we want to keep this thing, we've got to give it away. We've got to help build it to the point where it can continue to grow. Sometime soon, you're going to get some follow-up with somebody. Dark Helmet is organizing a grassroots effort to go down through the sector Qs and through the Nantans so that he can get in touch with each and every one of you. The call is easy to see. We just need you to answer that call. And I want to thank all the guys out there, all the men of this nation who are selflessly giving day in and day out absolutely everything that they can to help make this organization what it is today, what it'll be tomorrow, to help create strong men, loving families, fair and effective governments, and supportive communities. That's where we're headed, gentlemen, and we wish you'd come along with us. We need every swinging Richard in the fight if we're going to make the change that we've agreed to make. Thank you for joining us tonight. From all of us at F3 Nation, we wish you and your families Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and we'll see you in the gloom.